when we were talking about it the other day, Buddy Hield, I just looked at his average for the series. Let's say 3 games. He's averaging 0.7 points per game in 9.7 minutes. Yeah. All right.
Got to do the Pusha T. Yeah.
So with it, we talked about, hey, they need to do something, whether it's KJ Martin, Ricky Council, Cam Payne, they have to do something. He pulled the Cam Payne card Nick Nurse did last night and paid dividends immediately when he came into the game. The energy that we discussed, it was on full display. I wasn't in there. You guys were. What was the crowd like when he hit that first 3? And then the energy that he just kept providing in there. And clearly it was the right move.
Yeah, I mean, but he's giving you nothing. So you have to try something else. It would be insanity to not switch something up at some point when you had 17 points from your bench in 2 games, only 2 of which came from Buddy Hield. Look, we've talked about it a lot. There are concerns with Cam in the backcourt defensively, but he gives you a live dribble. He gives you some activity. He gives you some shooting. He's not going to hesitate. He gives you some playmaking. All little doses of skill sets that you desperately, desperately need. And with how the Sixers can hemorrhage points without Joel Embiid, and how the Sixers struggle to score without Joel Embiid, you need something to at least try to offset that. I thought he gave them good minutes, obviously, but it really is all that. It's just movement, speed, ball handling, a little bit of shooting. He's been good. He's been good. He gave a big lift.
He had one of my favorite post-game pressers of any player since I started covering this team. Just such a refreshing perspective of a role player, and really insightful, taking you into what it takes to go from essentially being a non-entity in this series to you're playing 15 big minutes and you need to produce. And Cam he didn't say that he's in a coach's mindset on the sidelines, but that's sort of where he was going with what he said, where he's like, look, I got to be locked into the details. Like, if I'm in this game, what would I be doing here? If I'm in this guy's spot, is he doing the right thing? This is what I would need to do if I'm there. And then talking about the energy you need to have on the sidelines, right? What was the exact quote was energy costs nothing.
When you tweeted that out last night, I brought that up on the show just because I thought that was perfectly said by
just
Cam
like
Payne.
Such a great snapshot of what it takes to hang around as a role player. But he expanded on it. The larger quote was saying, look, human beings feed off of energy, whether you're a basketball player, whether you're just a person in a normal work setting in an office or what have you. When you're surrounded by positivity, it makes you want to be more positive. It makes you want to step up and meet the challenge of the day. And so Cam said, when I'm on the sideline, I'm hopping up and down. I'm yelling and screaming. I'm supporting my teammates because I know when I'm on the floor, I want that from my guys. I want my fans that cheer for me, Cam Payne, to bring that same level of energy. And so the second that he gets in the game, he gets an assist to Nick Batum. He hits a quick 3 after a Knicks bucket. He's beating his chest. He's waving his arms. He has not stopped somebody on defense in his life, really, but he's sinking down and he's getting low in a defensive stance and saying, like, I'm here, man, and get behind me. And so talking about the Maxey thing earlier, like the personality, I think that's another example of an ultra positive guy, that having those types of guys, even when Cam doesn't play, is valuable, right? He's keeping the mood up, the spirit up in the locker room. But then you bring him in the game. He's been in these situations, right? That run in Phoenix, he was a huge part of that run to the finals, right? He's a big spark off the bench. He said last night a lot of what he learned about staying ready and being locked in enough that you can just come into a playoff game and give 15 great minutes. He learned it on that team with your cousin Devon, but playing behind or with or filling in for Chris Paul, just knowing at any time it might be my time to step up. And so we talked about it leading into the playoffs. You're going to need just about everybody to go on a real run. They got a Cam Payne game last night, and hand up, I will say, you guys know, coming into the playoffs, I wasn't really hoping that he would play in general. I thought he was going to be a complete liability defensively. I think there are still chances that he will.
Nick didn't know if he was going to play either because he played 3 minutes in the first 2 games.
So but it's going to take everyone. In fact, he ended up superseding D'Anthony Melton's minutes last night. Nick talked after the game, said there were times we thought, hey, now's Melton's chance to come in, but you roll with the hot hand, and good for him for taking that chance with Cam, arguably needed to with how Buddy was playing. But I think he has made his case. I think he's playing Buddy's minutes in game 4.
Even after he made those threes, the thing that what he opened up was the drive to the basket. And there was a play with he and Embiid on a screen and roll, and Embiid was going left, Cam Payne was going right. So he took the middle. He ball faked like he does on that drive. The hesitation was there that had the defense just a little bit off balance. It was mainly the big man making a decision of what he wanted to do. And then he dropped in that patented teardrop that he does right there in the middle of the lane. So not only his three-point shooting, but it's also that adding to it that can also help out with what he does. And we talked about it on draft night. So many people were ticked off at the Pat Beverly move and his campaign. The one thing that I said at the time was, I don't know if he's going to play, because we knew the Kyle Lowry piece was also going to come. But when it comes to the playoffs,
Lowry had a big, huge second half.
Yes.
Well, I know we brought it up earlier. But
And to that point, though, when we were talking about we didn't know what his role would be, we also thought Melton would come back at some point.
But the only thing that I said was, he's played in big games because of the run that Kyle's talking about in 21 when they went to the finals. And when Chris Paul went down, we were like, uh-oh, what are we going to do now? Cam Payne stepped in and started 12 games, played really well. They kept winning basketball games. And then when the postseason came along, he played in those games too. So I was only pointing out that he has been there so the moment wouldn't be too big. And when you talk about him bouncing around, he's always bouncing around. Not just in game. It's before the game, in practice.
It's at the podium. He's sitting there like.
It's at home.
Yeah.
That dude does not stop. That's his energy. That's who he is. That's what he does. So it's good to see it. Just to see him get that. And frankly, hell, we were right. We said put one of these other guys in there because you needed to change something with Buddy Hield not giving you something. I hope at some point Buddy Hield does make a shot for them. But Cam Payne, those minutes have to go to him right now. And we'll see if it leads to something else where Nick Nurse sees a moment where he has to call on another number.
We all silly like the mayor.